just going to the next step, but it's all God. So,
And you're seizing the moment, which is amazing. And I thank you for seizing that moment.
I believe God said there would be a speed up of time and that things would happen quickly. And I believe you're right in the middle of it. God has called you to sound the trumpet, to warn America, to warn the world, and yet you're on a fast track. You're in, how many miles do you think you've flown?
I don't even. I've lost track of miles. I've lost track of everything. I go to the airport. I don't even know what plane I'm going. I don't have time to look at the plane until they last minute say, "Okay, what airline?" I just go to the thing and then I go to the next place. That's how it is. I don't have time to even think about it. But things are speeding up. I mean, things are speeding up in America. I mean, what's happening? Things are speeding up in the world. It is. We are at critical moments. So I don't believe I have a choice. I remember once when I left here, Morningside, and I went to they have a little airport where everybody waves as you go.
Yes, little Branson Airport. I love that airport.
You feel guilty leaving because
they wave. They're sweet. Yes.
I said, Lord, I'm given a heavy thing here. It's one of the first times I was here, and I just opened the Bible, and it's Son of Man, if you don't blow that trumpet, you're accountable. So we have to. We have to.
Boy, that's
critical.
God has called Rabbi to sound that alarm.
Yes.
To warn the world, the harbinger. 9/11. I knew after 9/11. I knew 9/11 wasn't, as you do, wasn't some ordinary event. We knew that something was being said to America. And God began to unveil it to you almost from the first moment, wasn't it?
When I was praying, I was led immediately to that section of Isaiah that speaks of that first strike of warning on the land. And I knew that. I got that. And right after that, David Wilkerson then shared in New York City, said, this is the word from the Lord, and he shares the same chapter and Isaiah 9:10, which would become the whole decoder of the harbingers, without realizing, he didn't realize, the things hadn't happened yet. Then it was after that when I was in New York City at Ground Zero, and the Lord just transfixed my attention to this object and said, you have to seek this out. There is something you have to find here. And when I did, that began the harbinger. It just exploded, this mystery that blew me away first. And then it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That's how it began.
And now we keep seeing new chapters of the harbinger.
This is not of me. It has a life of its own, to where I look at it and I get blown away. And when people tell me, and I don't believe it, they're telling me, but this is here. But things that are in the book have come true. Even there's a date in the book where the thing came true on the date afterwards. There's a foreshadow that the president fulfilled afterwards, inscribing those words on the tower, and then finding out that we were actually, the whole harbinger went forth on the very land of the man who owned Ground Zero in ancient time. He had two lands. The other was the land of our building.
Your church.
Our church, Beth Israel Jerusalem Center, is on his homeland, is on the place where he lived. The keeper of Ground Zero, who dedicated it all to the Lord.
And the sign America is the name of the man.
The sign of the coming on our street. Ryerson is the name of the keeper of Ground Zero. And then if you go to Ground Zero, you find the other name. They go together. Of that farm that was Ground Zero. I mean, it's the only land in the planet, the two lands that are linked together. It's Ground Zero and where the harbinger went forth. So the harbingers appeared in one of the lands, and the message came forth from the other. We had no idea. I mean, God is, and this is when the harbinger started, and we almost lost our build. We actually did lose our first building. It was like warfare, and the Lord brought us to this land. We had no idea until He revealed it. But He's in every detail. We only find out after.
Yeah.
You were in dismay, brother, because you were losing your church building. Your church left the building
with nothing. As soon as I started sharing the harbinger, all hell came against the ministry.
Yeah.
It was like the enemy wanted to stop that message before it became what it became. And so what happened is that the town and the landlord decided they're going to destroy our building. So it came down to the last service. We had no place to go. We had the whole service. We celebrated. We're going out with joy. We led forth, and we went out to nothing. We had nothing. And we locked up the building, The next day, the Lord gave us a new building. The next day, after we lost the first building. So literally, and where he brought us turned out to be this sacred land that was part of the mystery to begin with.
The land, the 9/11,
the land,
the man who owned 9/11, the very land that they moved to across the river.
That replaced Ground Zero. It was the redemption of Ground Zero. And it was, and actually the harbinger, the beginning of the revelation, it came while I was standing on Ground Zero. It finished on his first land. It finished on his second land when it went forth. And then, but on top of it, the place where we left was destroyed, ruins. They destroyed the building, and they put up a Walmart. And Walmart has a book department. And one of the few books they have is the Harbinger. So the Harbinger is going forth.
And they don't carry that many books. Only the bestsellers.
And so the Harbinger was going forth, where the enemy tried to stop, is now going forth as a book in Walmart on the very ground where it's first preached. It's going forth to America.
I love it.
God always has the last word.
He always
And I don't even want to get to it yet, but I have, this is the new book.
There it is.
This is the new Harbinger. This is the new book. It is not on the presses at this moment as we're taping. And
pretty amazing.
It is secret manuscript. I have read it all, and I cry. The end of this book.
Yeah. Yeah. The end really gets.
I'll probably never tell you the end of the book because I don't believe in telling the ends of books. But I want to tell you, and this is the first mock-up. The rabbi has never seen it before until a few minutes ago, until he came on the stage.
Literally a few minutes
ago. They brought this out. This is not even a real book. This is what we call a dummy. It's like me.
But
but the cover is
the cover is
this
the real
is the
deal.
real cover.
Yes.
The real cover, because it hasn't even gone on the presses. It's just being pressed. It's just getting ready, isn't it?
Yeah. This began, like many of things here.
What?
This book began with you. And now I'm sharing this. Here's how it happened. You and Jerry, who works with the products, said to Charisma, the publisher, said, when's the next thing coming from Rabbi John? When's the next book and when's the next thing coming? And I've been led, the sequel to the Harbinger is yet to come. The Lord has led me that I have to wait until the time. It's linked to things happening. But I wasn't going to do anything, And so then Charisma, they said, well, Morningside is saying we really need to have another thing.
They're blaming me?
Yeah. And so they said, well, you know what, we'd like to do like a book because the Shemitah is coming, the year of the Shemitah is coming, and people want to know all about this thing. So let's do at least a booklet. So we want to do it, but your name, and, I said, all right, well then I'll have to help you write it, so I'll write, I said, so I'll write it, don't put my name on it, I'll write a thing. And so, so that's how it began. But then as I started getting ready for it, all of these other revelations started flooding, which I didn't expect, flooding. And so it ended up not a booklet, it ended up 300 pages, and we reduced it a bit from that. But it was filled, it got so big, the mystery of the Shemitah, it begins with the Harbinger, it's one of the mysteries of the Harbinger, but it is so big that it's not only, determined the crash of Wall Street, the rise and fall, what is coming, but the very world, the rise and fall of nations, everything timed to this mystery from the Bible, exactly down, what has been, what is, and what is coming. And so this just blew me away, and this happened during the busiest time of my life. So I wrote this mostly on planes, on trains, and hotel rooms. That's pretty much, by a miracle. And then, so it became, and I wasn't still going to put my name in. I said, you can have someone, you can do it from an editor or whatever. But the last moment they said, these are your names. So this book became it started here, became what nobody planned it to be. Nobody expected this, including me. This was a surprise thing. And it just had a life of its own. There is so much, but truly, and we're the first time we're really talking about this because it didn't technically exist. But the mystery is just so big. It has determined things down to the seconds. Down, to the days, the dates, the seconds. And it is coming. Another one is coming now. And it's getting more intense. And so I believe that the Lord wanted this out, as soon as possible.
This is the guide to what the Shemitah year, where in a few months, really, we're entering a period of time, and you don't set dates. You make it very clear. I'm having a hard time not getting into this book because you see this where I marked it? You want to read this because you better know you are so bold in this book.
I believe the Lord wants this out because of what is coming. And
in this fast, he's accelerated. We talk about speeding up. This book is going to the press faster than almost any book I've ever heard.
It makes no sense because not only did no one plan this book, really, but I got things in the mail about this book before I finished it. You know, I got a flyer, hey, this book's coming out, and it's not even finished.
You said, oh, yeah.
It was just last Wednesday that the last changes were made, and it went to the print. So, and now it's going out. But I believe it was the Lord's plan. I actually talked to Hubie, who's the man at the airport, before I said, no, Hubie, should I be doing? He said, yes, this is the Lord. This is preparing for what is. Because I wasn't going to do anything, you know. So, this just came.
You just had Mark Biltz with you at at the
Jerusalem Center.
I never know what to call it: church, tabernacle, or
temple, place,
synagogue.
Building,
we call them all those things.
Meeting house,
assembling place. And God gave him just a revelation of the blood moons, and he's been on our program many times. And we see that timing. We see the blood moons don't just happen. They happen on date. And it's amazing how many happen on holy days. And so God has a set time. And I think everyone here today needs to understand, and I believe with all of my heart, I know God changes his mind at least once. In Jonah's case, he was going to destroy Nineveh, but Nineveh repented.
And it's interesting, in the Hebrew, when it says Nineveh shall be 40 days, Nineveh shall be destroyed but also means overturned. So you can take it as destruction or shall be overturned. Well, they were overturned. They went from sin to a total revival. So even in that, God is accurate and true. Even the warning, is it destruction or hope? You know?
That's the only hope for America.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe, I've said this before, I've said this here, and I'm not talking about the timing, though they could be in a specific way, but a great shaking is coming, and it is for the purpose. It's because without shaking, this nation will not turn back, and the only hope is shaking. Shaking.
We're going to talk in the next few days. We're so glad to have you back for a week or so.
We are.
New developments of the Harbinger. We're going to share that this week. We're going to share, God willing, we're booked to go with you to Israel.
Yes.
I can't believe Lori's never been to Israel.
No, my friend.
And we'll bring our cameras there. We'll originate program there.
Yep.
It may be the coming of the Lord or something.
I said,
I don't know.
And if all hell breaks loose while we're there, I said, no better place for the Lord to take us than straight from the Holy Land. I'm ready to go if that's what happens.
I just have to ask you about Israel. Everybody's talking about the Psalms 83 war. We know which is coming. We don't know when. But could you give us an update, Rabbi?
Yeah, well,
you go to Israel occasionally.
I do, and I'll be there before the tour too. I have to go back and forth, but I'll kind of a spiritual part of this, or the underside of it. First of all, I mean, just to keep always our perspective. No matter who it is, no matter what their name is, no matter what the organization is, it's beyond them. This is the enemy. The enemy has tried to destroy the Jewish people for 4,000 years, last 2,000, try to wipe them out in the 20th century. The names keep changing. Hamas, Saddam Hussein, Joseph Stalin, Hitler. It's not based on them. This is a fallen angelic being who is dealing with that enemy that Israel is dealing with, and that is trying to wipe them out because he knows what's coming. So he's trying to wipe them out. But interesting, we just talked before about that one-year Bible, and then the thing that was appointed for 9/11, which was the Harbinger scripture. But also in every one-year Bible, appointed is another verse, which is Psalm 55, which speaks about destruction. This was appointed for 9/11, and everyone speaks about destruction in the city. And the word that they use for destruction or violence in the city is a word that's an amazing word because it means something in Hebrew and it means something in Arabic. And that word, which means violence or destruction, is the word in the Bible is the word Hamas.
Oh.
It's the word in the Bible is the word Hamas. In Arabic, it means fanaticism and zeal. In Hebrew, it means destruction and violence. And actually, I'll tell you, it also means, listen to what Hamas means in the Bible. It means damage, cruelty, oppression, unrighteousness, wrongdoing, falsehood, and to act violently. And let me just listen to this, and this is just, by the way, I didn't plan this except that I was told that, you were talking about this, so upstairs last night I just looked in the Bible, so let me just share what's here. In the Bible, what it says about Hamas. Listen, the word Hamas, okay? Psalm 25, consider my enemies, for they are many, and they hate me with a Hamas hatred. Psalm 74:20, think about the tunnels with Hamas. Think about this.
Yes.
The dark places of the earth are full of the dwelling places of Hamas.
Oh, my.
Okay, 2 Samuel 22, you saved me from Hamas. Psalm 11, but the wicked and he who loves Hamas, the Lord's soul hates. Isaiah 53, Messiah. Listen to this, but it says he had done no Hamas. He's the opposite of Hamas. He had done no violence. Ezekiel 7, Hamas has risen up into a rod of wickedness. Ezekiel 7, the land is full of crimes of blood and the city is full of Hamas. And let me give you one more. There's more.
Actually, just take your time.
No,
This is incredible.
This is Revelation.
This is just last night. And the thing is that Obadiah speaks about Esau, the descendants of Esau. He says, it's your shame that you went against your brother Isaac. In other words, and many of the descendants of Esau are linked with these people, with many Arabic people, and they're wonderful. There are wonderful, God-loving Arabic people, but you have that as well. So it says that it's your shame that you went against Isaac. So listen to what it says here. It says this. It says, speaking about the descendants of Esau, for your Hamas against your brother Jacob, shame shall cover you. So it's talking about the descendants of Esau. It says your Hamas against them. And now listen to this, last one. This is a promise to Israel. Listen, Isaiah 60. For Hamas shall no more be heard in your land, nor the wasting of destruction in your borders. You'll call your walls salvation and your gates praise.
That is powerful.
There is
Bible.
It's just right here in the Word. It's been there all these years.
They're thousands of years old. The Word, I quake and shake under the Spirit of what's going on. We are there. We're in the final days. Church, if you're not studying the Word, if you're just going to happy church and you're not studying the Word of God, and you're just hearing preaching about how to get more money, the money's going to be gone. All the people that are prophesying today that I trust are saying there's going to be a crash in America like we've never. Just share a couple of them.
Yeah, here's one headline. This is from Money News. The headline reads this: Billionaire warns Yellen collapse will be unlike any other. It says another horrific stock market crash is coming, and the next bust will be unlike any other we have seen. That's the message from Jeremy Grantham, co-founder and chief investment strategist of GMO, a Boston-based firm of $117 billion.
What do they mean, Yellen collapse?
Well, Yellen is actually the Federal Reserve chairwoman, I guess you could say, and of the Federal Reserve. So they're saying that she's acting in such, he doesn't pull any punches. I mean, he's saying that she's acting in such an ignorant way that the Yellen collapse is going to be blamed on her. They're actually putting a name to it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
When you study the Samhita, the warning, and we're coming to a time of warning and judgment, are we not, Rabbi?
We are in a time of warning and of judgment, and it is accelerating. Since I was here last time, things have accelerated in America, just, because this is the other side. The harbingers continue because what's happening in the nation is continuing. The apostasy from God. I mean, rapid fire where believers can hardly keep up with it and can hardly believe how far it's come in such a short time. Right. Just in the last time since I've been here, marriage has been has been struck down in state after state after state. It has never not been struck down since that Supreme Court ruling. This was a tipping point. I believe, 2012 was a tipping point. It was the first time the president came against the biblical definition of marriage. It was the first time the majority did. And when you reach a tipping point, things accelerate. So things have accelerated since. You have the Supreme Court, you have this, and now, but it's getting to the point where, the Bible says, woe to those who call evil good and good evil. It goes together. So as much every time that evil is called good, there's another step of calling good evil and silencing believers. And ultimately, we are watching the beginnings of persecution in this land, where believers are made to be the villains, or always vilified, and where even the government is trying to force believers doing things like fund abortion, which never happened before, and to partake in what is immoral, or be punished. I mean, there was just a executive order that came out that ultimately the government will say, if you're a nonprofit or you're a religious group and you are not endorsing basically homosexuality, we will cut ourselves off from you. I mean, this is major stuff. And so we are watching these risks. So at the same time, the signs of judgment are increasing, just as in Israel's last days. That's why the signs of the harbinger have never stopped. That's why this is coming, and it's a kind of dangerous thing that these things are all converging. Even when you look at what Mark Biltz has said, that the period of the blood moons, it's a year and a half period. But most of that period is the Shemitah. And, we're just in the beginning of the period. Yeah. Once we reach September, once we're in September now, this is the entire thing is together. It's all the Shemitah now. It's all happening at the same time. And it's all going to culminate at the peak climax of the Shemitah. So these are dangerous things because what we're watching, if you look at the last 2001 and 2008, you see it's accelerating. It's happening more exact, more precise. It's happening. So this is a sign that we are heading towards judgment, getting closer. And one of the things, I'm not going to share now, but one of the things about the latest things about the harbinger is a dramatic sign that we are much closer to that moment.
One of the things that's making me very, very upset and very nervous is people are predicting another Jewish Holocaust. I mean, just literally saying we're on the verge of a Holocaust. And in England, in France, they're marching in the streets. Isn't that right, Zach?
That's exactly right. And it's really unfortunate. I was reading a recent article where it's almost becoming the new fad, that it's the cool thing to be anti-Israel.
Oh.
In France, they're marching by the thousands. In England, they're marching. But guess who's marching? Do you know who's marching? Who's in those marches?
There are Muslim activists in there.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not just the run-of-the-mill people of France, the run-of-the-mill people. These are anti-Jewish people.
I mean, this pretty much sums it up right here. This article is from the Washington Post, and it says, more clarity in Gaza. Here's the difference between us, explains the Israeli Prime Minister. We're using missile defense to protect our civilians, and they're using their civilians to protect their missiles. And the man, we're so misguided even in our country. The man who is supposed to represent America, the man who's supposed to represent our values, is rewriting history. There is an article right here in front of me, and this is Obama, that says this: Muslims built the very fabric of our nation. Our president is trying to rewrite history. He's trying to guide it. Like Rabbi said, Isaiah 5:20, whenever they're calling good evil and evil good, this wasn't just simply an end-time prophetic scripture verse. What Isaiah was saying was that the worst possible thing that can happen to a society, the thing that is just at the bottom of the barrel, it gets no worse, is whenever a society starts calling the good things of God evil and the evil things good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We were talking about the Psalms 83 war. John Shorey, he believes that when the other nations join in to fight Israel, that has to be one of the signs of the Psalms 83 war. And the headline here, it says that Iran general, here's what he is saying. He's saying, we will hunt down Israelis house to house.
And they can say that without any condemnation from the world. You know, it is amazing. I mean, when you try to understand this, they said, you know, years ago they said it was this reason for anti-Semitism, this reason for so a man named Theodor Herzl said, we're going to come back to Israel, Jewish people, let's go back, and that's going to be the solver, because the reason is because we have no nations. The reason is that's why we're so hated. They go back to Israel, they're going to find peace. Well, they went back to Israel, more hatred. So it is supernatural. It is absolutely, you want evidence, you want evidence, people say like, what's the evidence of God? Well, one of the evidences of God is the Jewish people, that they exist. God said, you're in this world, nothing, the stars, as long as there's stars and the sun, you're not going to be destroyed. That's one. So as long as the Jewish people exist, you know God exists. Anyway, secondly, but the same thing, you want an evidence of the devil, that he's real? Look at the history of Israel. Look at what's been done to them. Look at what happened with Hitler. Look at the satanic thing. What is this force that is trying to wipe them out? It is the reality of the enemy. The Messiah said 2,000 years ago, your shalom is hidden from you, until you find it. But why has the world been trying to wipe them out for 2,000 years? Because the enemy knows what it means when they come to Messiah. His war is over. He's finished. He's defeated. That's why. That's the reason. It's amazing. There's warfare over Israel and Jerusalem. You go in the natural, Jerusalem, you got great cities. Jerusalem is a bunch of rocks, basically. It's in the natural, doesn't have anything that any major city has. It has nothing. And yet it's the most fought over city in the history of the world. The world has been trying to get, why? Because God says, this is my city, this is where I put my name, and this is where I'm coming back. That is why. And so the enemy has tried to destroy that city again. And also, what really bothers the enemy is having Jewish people there. That's why the world says, you can't, it's the only place where it's a crime for Jewish people to settle in their own land. The world says this is a crime. You build a house, this is a crime. Why? Because the enemy doesn't want them there, because the Lord said they need to, when they come there, that's the beginning of when I'm coming. I'm not coming again until they're there.
The devil, we'll put a name on him, is trying to destroy the very word of God.
Yes.
The Jew has to be Jesus, the fulfillment. He can't come back if the Jews haven't returned to Israel.
Yes.
So just the fact that they returned 70 years ago, roughly, and built a city there is the foundational stone of prophecy of the coming of the Lord. And now all of that is, I believe we're in that last generation. It's all happening. You can feel it, can't you? You know the King is coming.
Yeah.
You know the Word.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be in this room if you didn't know that. But most of the church is not even looking at what God's doing. They're looking at how to get more money in their pocket, which is the love of money is the root of all evil. How could we be moving into another gospel when Jesus is about to return? It's happening. I believe we'd only have a short, as John Shorey puts it, a window of the Lord's return. I really believe we are in the day. I don't see how it could be much longer because of the times of the generation, because of all the fulfillment. The Jews have returned. The warfare that's going on. There's warfare. This is crazy. The warfare in the United States of America. We have turned our backs against God. We have mocked God. And God's not mocked.
No. You have major things happening at once. You have America distancing itself from Israel in the last few years, number one. At the same time, America is rapidly turning against the ways of God. Rapidly. And you wonder, how far could it go?
Yeah.
And how far will the Lord allow it?
Yeah.
So as you said, he is not mocked, and he warns before, his heart is mercy. He warns before he judges. He calls for that reason. And even then, he's long-suffering. He holds back. But finally there comes a point where it can't be held back anymore. But he warns his people. And what I found is around the country, I found that most believers, if you ask them, they sense it already. they would tell you, yes, we believe something is coming. I mean, that's I've never had that before. Where it's been that palpable that there is something coming here. America is in danger of judgment. Never before. So we are. Yes, this is what we knew about in days when we learned about prophecy. It's coming. We talked about persecution, but didn't have. Now it's coming. We talked about about it's coming. So yes, and we have to be ready, which is one of the things that you guys do.
The book, The Mystery of the Shemitah, will be out shortly. We'll announce it on the show.
The first appearance will be here.
We'll be here. And we have, it's The Mystery of the Shemitah. This is the mystery copy I have in my hand, kindergarten level. Would you explain that to us?
Yeah, Shemitah speaks of that, the seventh year of the Bible that most people don't know. They know the Sabbath day, but it was a Sabbath year. Every seventh year, it was the Shemitah. The word can mean release. That's how people would know it. Remission or wiping away of debt. But the word also means the collapse, the fall, the shaking, or the overthrowing. So this thing is so filled, it has a whole prophetic realm, this Shemitah, that has not only affected the history of Israel, but has affected the history of America, will, and literally the nations, the world. This is not only America. This is the world. I mean, it has determined world wars, global cataclysms. I cannot tell you just how big this thing is, but it is gigantic. Gigantic. And so this is God's exact timepiece that is linked. It can be blessing or it turns to judgment. And that's what we're dealing with right now.
And so it was a time when the land was to rest.
Sabbath for the land. The land rests. Every seventh year you shall have a Sabbath. And there's no sowing, no reaping, no plowing, nothing. You let everything. There's no buying or selling of the fruits. It is a total Sabbath rest, which was to be a good thing initially. But it turns into something else. And the thing is that on the last day of the Shemitah, the very last day, is an amazing thing called Elul 29, that's the 29th day of the Hebrew month Elul, when all debts are wiped out, all credits wiped out, the financial accounts are wiped clean, which was a blessing, but when Israel turned away from God, this blessing turned into judgment, literally led to the wiping away of Jerusalem in the days of Jeremiah, was all linked to the mystery of the Shemitah. The Shemitah is really, the spiritual meaning is it's really saying that God is sovereign. You go after money, God is the one who owns the land. God is the one who has given you every blessing you have. God is the one who is king over all things. And so it was a humbling, the Shemitah humbles the pride of man. The Shemitah reminds man or a nation that its blessings all come from God. And if you put God out of the picture, your blessings are going to fall.
Oh, boy.
Could it be at work right now? I mean, it
is at work
in
right
America.
Now. Yes, it is. That's the amazing thing. It is at work. It has affected. We're going to see as we get deeper. It's going to be. It has affected. It lies behind not only in the Harbinger. You read about really the most dramatic thing, the last things that happened, which was what happened in 2001 and 2008, which we'll touch on. But it turns out, and I didn't know this when I wrote it. I had an idea, I had a feeling, but I didn't. It's been affecting our lives from the day we were born. It's been affecting our jobs. It's been affecting the rise of the economy, the fall of the economy, the rise of Wall Street, fall of Wall Street, what happens in the White House. It affects what happened overseas. It's been affecting every one of our lives, and it will affect the future. So yes.
Could you just, so people begin to understand, what are the signs of the Shemitah? How would it appear?
Okay. It became like what to watch for, kind of the fingerprints.
I like keys. I like little points that people can remember.
Yes.
Because see what's going on, because we are there, people. We are there. And the more I study, and reading your new book is so overwhelming that, I don't know what to do because people won't listen.
That's how a watchman often feels.
Really?
Yeah, you're blowing the shofar. You're trying to wake up the people. That's what the Lord said. But once you blow the shofar, you're not responsible whether they wake up or not, or whether they're going to say yes or no. Our charge is to blow the shofar. no matter what. Blow the shofar. God will.
And one of the reasons One of the reasons you don't hear a lot of people blowing the shofar is because they're scared to death. The headlines this week, the government's coming for the church next. Have you read those headlines? This is just out the last 48 hours. They're coming for the church. And I'll tell you what, most churches are scared to say what we're saying. They're afraid to tell you the truth. They're afraid. Government has power. Politicians crush each other through political power. I've seen it. I've walked with presidents. I have talked with them. I'm telling you, politics can bring out a bad spirit in anybody, I think. But to keep that power and to win that power. And I'm not anti-anybody. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm not an independent. I'm just a Christian who loves Jesus, who believes that we ought to honor God in our nation. But I know I have seen wonderful men of God. I've seen wonderful presidents. I have seen wonderful presidents sell their friends for political power. Power is corrupting. And we are living in a day where we must honor God. We must honor God.
Yes. Yes.
So give us just a couple of points there as we leave today, the program today.
We're going to open up the mystery this week, and in it, the key things to look. Imagine we're looking for fingerprints of this Shemitah appearing.
Yeah.
Well, first thing is, it affects the economy. It did in Israel. It caused an economic cessation. So you got recession, looking at depression. Look for that. Secondly,
now, we've already seen, you've told us about 7 years after 9/11.
Yes.
We saw that crash. Then we saw 7 more years.
Well, you're going to see that it's even beyond that.
Beyond that now.
It's beyond that.
That's what
the other key is the 7-year cycle. Okay, the other key is that wiping away of financial accounts. You got financial collapse there. Another key is the month of Tishri. Remember that month, Tishri. We'll get into it. Tishri is the holiest month of the Hebrew year.
Yes.
But it is the month that begins the Shemitah and the month that ends the Shemitah. It's the month that comes right after that moment of wipeout. So it's the month that manifests that wipeout, all the effects of that wipeout financially. So you get those keys. Now, one other thing is, remember Elul 29. The month of Elul builds up to Tishri, builds up to that final moment. Now, with that final wipeout always happens when the sun goes down. When the sun sets, all debts are wiped out. So these are some keys. Now, once you have the keys, we're going to see this thing manifest amazingly. I mean, amazingly. We're going to see things really that Nobel laureates in economics don't know because they don't read the Bible. We're going to see things that the heads of Wall Street don't know because most of them don't read the Bible.
Yeah.
But God wants us to know.
Yes, he does.
You mentioned the headline a few minutes ago. A billionaire, one of the richest men in the world.
Yeah.
He is predicting a collapse. And here's what he says is coming, the financial collapse. He says it will be unlike any other. Something big is going to happen. We have the billboards of God called the sun and the moon, declaring in the blood moons on the holy days. It's all shaking to me. It's all startling. I've been a Christian since a little boy. Donna and I, my sister's here in the front row, but we grew up in church. We didn't have pews. We had benches. But we've grown up. We've heard about this. We've heard it preached. We've heard the prophecy preached. And here we are living in it. I just shake with it. The Spirit of God. I was thinking about God last night, and it was like I had a dream of God or a vision or something of God, and that God was excited. Can you imagine God? I don't know. I could be all wet. I don't know.
No, it's in the Bible. It's in the Bible.
God was excited because everything that he has built towards the sending of his son, all of it, he's about to see the great conclusion of all of mankind, of the Son of God's death, why he came, the Jews returning, the resurrection, the great moment, the greatest, if it was a play on stage of history, is on stage now.
Yeah.
Give